Italian panel, entrepreneurs, the president of an association of female entrepreneurs, just turned 60, moderated by Silvia Mari, who is a journalist at Dire Donne. Good afternoon, everyone. Let us begin this time of dialogue. Our protagonists are the women that you see sitting next to me. They are women who have an entrepreneurship history. They are entrepreneurs and they have a lot to say. Let me tell you about Agenzia Dire. We are media partner of Women 20. We've followed this summit since its beginning. And we also published a special issue for female entrepreneurs because we believe that we need to talk about female entrepreneurs and the difficulties that they encounter in their daily job. We wanted to understand whether women entrepreneurs have specific characteristics, if they have different reference points compared to men entrepreneurs. Every female entrepreneur told me, well, probably viewpoints which are quite different from men's, but I found something common, a commonality in what these women told me, and we will hear that also from our speakers, from our panelists, is that they want to collaborate, they want to be partners of male entrepreneurs. This is something that I heard from all the women entrepreneurs that I spoke to. Let me introduce to you the women who are sitting next to me, and then we will start our panel that is entitled Breaking the Glass Ceiling. We will ask these women, what sort of advice can you give to young entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, to women-guided startups? First of all, we have Antonella Giachetti, president of AIDA, and we will ask her to tell us what AIDA is. I apologize for mispronouncing AIDA. Then we have Roberta Gilli, CEO of Italia Cargo. We have Barbara Paglieri, president and CEO of Paglieri Spa. Lily Summer, CFO of Summer & Co. Shipping S.p.A. And Rosa Sgaravatti, president of Sgaravatti Group. President, I would like to start with you. We know what you stand for, what you represent, but I would also like to ask you to help us understand why you were a pioneer in addressing the themes that we're discussing today at the Women 20 Summit. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for organizing this panel. I can see that there are 3 AIDA members sitting here next to me, so and I think that we're acquiring a 4th member. AIDA is a pioneering association because it was born 60 years ago. It is the oldest female entrepreneurs association in Italy. Our first president was Teodora Bagnano, and I read about the first conference that she organized, and it was entitled The Role of Women in Decision-Making Posts. And she focused on explaining how women could make a huge contribution to reducing contrast within the society, to reduce intolerance. I mean, she had an extremely modern vision. And the association was established to promote solidarity among women because it was informed by a similar association that was established 10 years earlier by women who had been left alone by their husbands who had to go to war. Therefore, these women had to continue their business. So the main value is solidarity among women to support one another so that to support one another, especially to overcome the problems that women would encounter at that time in the labor market, as that has been the main value over the past few years, Aida realized the importance of women's role in decision-making, in the decision-making sector. So it is trying to develop projects and initiatives as a civil society, and most especially to lobby on the institutions. For instance, our support to Women 20, the Women 20 organization has done a wonderful job, and we partly contributed in organizing the Women 20 because we believe that woman issue, the condition of woman, has to be included in the policies of governments. Thank you, President, for reminding us, for recalling Aida's history. And I will come back to you later on towards the end of this panel, because I would like to ask you to give you some thoughts about what is currently happening in Italy, most especially with regards to equal opportunities. I would like to give the floor now to Roberta Gilli, CEO of Italia Cargo. Roberta, I would like to ask you, could you tell us some specific experience that marked your experience as an entrepreneur? And also, could you share with us some projects that your company has? What your company has to do with logistics, which is quite a specific sector. We are still surprised that you see women leading society, leading companies in that sector. Thank you. First of all, I would like to start by thanking Elvira Marasco, who's the head of the Italian delegation for Women 20. Thank you, Elvira, for involving me in this wonderful adventure, both as an entrepreneur, because you gave me the possibility to tell to my small experience, but also for involving the Rome Chamber of Commerce Women Entrepreneurship Committee that I represent here. So I am an entrepreneur in a typically masculine sector, transportation and logistics. My company, Italia Cargo, however, is a typical female, women-led enterprise for the number of collaborators, because most of our collaborators are women. And as such, I always try to focus on those values that we're discussing during this summit: gender equality, sustainability, and solidarity. How can we translate that within a logistics company? Green technologies for logistics for infrastructures, and also workstations which are semi-mobile that allow the work-life balance. But it is a welfare choice that I took long before COVID, long before the COVID pandemic, because I am a mother, I have two children, I am a woman, and I am an entrepreneur. So since the very beginning, I recognized that I needed to give my collaborators workstations that they could use from home, if need be, so that they shouldn't choose between work and the family, as yesterday Ursula von der Leyen said very clearly. Well, of course, as is also connected to the type of activity that I carry out, because Italia Cargo is a company that is hyper-specialized, which means that besides the traditional activities of shipping, import, export, we also focus on some high-content, technological high-content services. So we created some dedicated departments, Arte Cargo and Pharma Cargo. With Arte Cargo, I had the great privilege of transporting 25 works of art by Leonardo da Vinci from Italy to Beijing for the 500th anniversary of his death. That was a great privilege. And I have to say that this sector of activity combines my passion, my creative and feminine side, with my technical career. This is something that I urge all of us entrepreneurs to do. Let us not forget our passions in our job. But what happened during COVID? With museums closed, part of our job somehow froze. So we had to focus our energies on another type of sector that was required by the market then. That was the transport of drugs. And therefore, thanks to our competencies, to our skills, and also thanks to the GDP European certification for the transport of drugs for humans, we focused on international network. So we selected our clients. We applied to become part of a network that transports drugs, and this network is present in 192 countries. So that is why we opened a division called the Pharma Cargo. That was made possible thanks to our skills, but also thanks to the professionals, to the talents that we have in our company. That is why it is fundamental to really enhance the human capital, because that is the real added value of any company. And in my case, I also adopted a participative leadership style that relies upon sharing ideas, on empathy, dialogue, and also I created a pleasant work milieu. But it is not easy. It is very difficult to be an entrepreneur nowadays, when it is all the more so to be a woman entrepreneur in a typically masculine sector, as Minister Giovanni said yesterday, because myself, I can say that during my professional career, I had to come to terms with gender inequalities. There was a period in my life in which I was top manager in a listed company. I was the only female top manager, but I was a victim of gender pay gap, because I was paid less than all the other top managers without any reason whatsoever. And also, they did not consider me equal to the other top managers. That is why, for several reasons, 11 years ago, I decided to start my own company. Well, I bought a company that already existed in the market, and I started to be my own boss. And I have to say that I was successful thanks to another woman called Lucia Cecilia Pazzuelo, who was my mentor in a way. And she really encouraged me to launch into this adventure, because she told me if women network, if women support one another, they can succeed. But I have not only had negative experiences in my profession, I also met really incredible people, also incredible men, I have to say, because I was the first woman leading an association of logistics in Italy. I was president of the Freight Leader Council for 2 terms when I was not even 40. And that was a great challenge for me, most especially a challenge with myself, because I had to show myself, to prove to myself that I had the right skills, the right capacities. This association somehow gathers the most important logistics associations. And during my presidency, not only have I improved the efficiency, but also with a perspective of environmental sustainability. So I was the first one who brought in Italy a European program for CO2 reduction, because the transport sector is polluting. So if we do not implement systems that allow us to reduce CO2, then what are we going to leave to our children, to the future generations? And this program also, thanks to this program, I obtained an award from the President of the Italian Republic, Napolitano. Thank you, Roberta Gilli, for sharing with us your experience. I understand, I can really sense your courage. I understand that you had to overcome many obstacles, but also that this modern approach, ecology, sustainability, to revolutionize the world of transport. I think that these are very important elements that have to help us define female leadership, because either it is transformative, otherwise it is no leadership at all. Let us now move on to the history and the company of Barbara Paglieri, CEO, and she would correct me, President and CEO of Paglieri Spa. Barbara, before leaving you the floor, I would like to say something. To me, it is normal to specify, to use the feminine word for entrepreneur, which in Italian is different from the male word, from the masculine word. But some entrepreneurs whom I met, they were not happy about me using the word for female entrepreneur in Italian. And therefore, I decided to adopt the word that we use for male entrepreneurs. Barbara, could you talk to us about your company, most especially of the theme of sustainability? And also, could you tell us if you have any welfare policies? Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for my invitation. I will spend 1 minute to present my company. We were established in 1876. I'm the 5th generation. My company is a historical company. The brands are Felce Azzurra. Our top brand is Felce Azzurra, which I think all the Italians know. We also have Mon Amour, which is, and then La Brosane Cleo. That was very popular in the 1980s. Because it was a line that contained milk. It was a line of soap. And so this brand was created in the 1980s, and its name, Cleo, comes from Cleopatra, because she liked to bathe in milk. And then we have another line for children, Saponello, and then Area di Casa, because we started to open up to other lines of products. And then we also bought Schiaparelli, another brand, and we did something during the COVID period, most especially hand sanitizers that could be distributed on the market nearly for free to help the operators, to help people. Now, the company, has always been very open to women. Already in the 1950s, we had 400 women working for us. In fact, our company started off as a perfume producer, then we moved on to personal care and home care. Subsequently, because of course we started to open up new lines of products, and Felce Azzurra was first launched in the 1970s, whereas our first line of perfume was launched in 1923. So we are a very traditional company, and we want to continue to have this primacy. But at the same time, we know that we have to innovate, because you can never stop. You always have to be really constructive, but also long-sighted. So this year, over the past few years, we also started to focus on welfare and also sustainability, because these are the themes. We have a turnover of 140 million, and we have 140 staff, personnel, 70 women and 70 men. There is no gender distinction, because I think that the most important thing is to hire people with the right competencies and skills and who can actually help us bring our company into the future. I do not care whether it is a man or a woman that we hire, but we want to have talents. Recently, we also trained some women to be mechanics. This goes to show that women can do technical jobs. So we are trying to implement some welfare policies, because we will we will let our personnel connect to a web portal whereby they can, I don't know, find several initiatives for their children, for their family, or I don't know, special medical checkups or things like that. What we do is to provide some benefits every 3 months to our staff. And then we have the canteen that is totally paid for by the company. In fact, we are very far from any restaurant or bar. So we said to ourselves, well, our staff need to enjoy this lunch break as much as possible. So we want to really reach a good work-life balance. And so we decided to offer something more to our staff, because you understand that if you have to take the car and go looking for a bar or a restaurant, it will take you some 10-15 minutes and then come back. It's also stress. So that could be very stressful. Instead, if you have everything available, you can relax, you can take your time, and then start working again and focus on work. The last few projects that we've looked at, well, we are developing a digital project called Digital Transformation. It has been recently approved by our board of directors, and we chose to collaborate with a company that will follow us for 1.5 years. And this project will develop, well, apart from a cloud with all the data, which is normal, which is a given, but it will also develop the future trends. It will somehow foresee the future trends. As we are market-oriented, we have to go out there to look for new opportunities, new trends where the market will move towards. And this project will help us grow digitally. This is another very important thing. And also, it will redesign all of our operational processes, well, maybe those that are less performing, and it will also train all operators, and all of them. And this is fundamental for us, because we develop our culture, so both men and women will have a higher culture, will be more trained. So in 2018, we were awarded the Premios MAU, and we started in 2018 with this project of sustainability by also starting to produce softeners. The softeners were about 12 million pieces. Now we produce 22 million pieces of softeners. So we decided to make an automation for the production of softeners, and that was a plus, because we hired 8 more people and we did not lay off anyone. So the whole territory benefited from this new line.
This project allowed us, in terms of sustainability, to improve logistics. We're having about 3,000 trucks less per year. So we wanted to be more sustainable in this regard. And then we have another important project on plastics, because we hear a lot talking about plastic. Most important thing is not that plastic pollutes. Plastic has to be handled properly. So there have to be the right recycling programs. Disposal has to be handled carefully. We are not that ready to compare to other countries in this handling of waste. We have the so-called Filter Bio line, that's a green line, where we have plastic containers that are 100% recyclable. Then Last year, we started with Toy Pack. I don't know if it is. This start is Flow Pack, soft packages to replace our liquid soap and concentrated softener bottles have been replaced. So the project is going on. We hope to replace them all gradually. And so we have reduced by 80% the plastic, 120 tons plastic, just to give you an idea. That's the weight of an Airbus. So we have saved the weight of an Airbus with this project. We're really care for that. We are moving on to replace all these products with recycled plastic. That's very hard because there are many different kinds of recycled plastics. So we need to find the right one that is compatible with our product. Because as you will well know, recycled plastic it's more expensive compared to the raw ones because it's not so easily available. So this year we also have the problem of color because we are light blue. Our bottle of Felce is light blue, so everything must be compatible. So the recycled plastic bottle with the content inside, because many recycled plastics arrive with a not a very pleasant smell, so we have to make important selections of plastic. We have an R&D in-house lab that is performing all this kind of analysis. As a final project, we have a door-to-door that we eliminated all transportation means for our packaging. So at the energy level, consumption has been cut because instead of arriving through trucks, they arrive through a tapis roulant, a treadmill. So this project is now we're looking at the photovoltaic energy, and we hope we can generate and self-power ourselves with this new energy. So I have to be a little bit intrusive to remind us the timing, a wonderful overview on the new things. Let's move on. Leave the floor to Lily Summer, CEO of Summer & Co Shipping. With Lily Summer, besides from her company, we're going to talk about the young. She's going to tell us how and why. And the AIDA and Turkey project, the name of a country, Turkey, that unfortunately is the protagonist of a sad page on the topics of women, as you know, after the withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. I represent our company that has more than 100 years, about 400 employees, 13 offices, and 70% of employees are women. We operate in logistics and transportation. That's the male environment exactly that was described by our friend. I am also president of Friuli Venezia Giulia, and I believe that women like me can teach to the young, can do something for the young and for the other women. We signed conventions with the region Friuli Venezia Giulia, where the companies belong to a list of companies where they welcome the young coming with working school projects. We have signed protocols with sports associations where we try to disseminate the ethics that the parents should have, the rights of the young and the duties of parents during sports. We know that sometimes parents are more active than the young. Instead, we have to introduce this in the young with our feminine sensitivity. We would like to mention this project with the Kadi Girl Association with Turkey that all in all belongs to our same world association. That's the FCM. They are FCM Turkey. And about 1 year ago already, we signed a memorandum of understanding where we tried to let the Italian and Turkish business women get to know each other by promoting internal meetings and offering job opportunities. After that, there was a B2B. It was very interesting. It was a virtual, everything was new, B2B, where more than 80 Italian and Turkish companies participated. In these days, now we are celebrating the first year of the project. We Care for Women, that is providing help to aid category women. And the logistic operator is the FDS. In this case, I'm referring to the Turkish office as the biggest ship logistics operator in the Mediterranean area. So Trieste's harbor 14 times a week is activated. So this project allows companies with Italian or European or Turkish women for the transportation to get free transportation on the Turkey route. We have already 108 Turkish companies that are participating in this program. There are regular ordinary contracts ongoing. We have already finalized with the Italian side, with Assolombarda and Confindustria, Friuli Venezia Giulia, to have this project promoted, so and vice versa. The goal is to increase relations with Turkey that are already excellent, because Italy is the second trading partner of Turkey, and of course something that all women in all environments shall play a role. So I deal with logistics, with big players and operators like the FDS, and together with more or less big companies in Turkey. Very well. Out of mic, sorry. So the audience is providing a suggestion. Yes, of course, these projects were important to be shared at this panel. Now I leave the floor to Rosi Sgaravatti, President of Sgaravatti Group. While we were talking about this panel, just before starting outside, she will explain very well the company dealing with landscaping and gardening design. What she lives in her company has to do with that care, that patience, those gifts that are usually ascribed to women. And so we are not saying that as a stereotype, but as a quality, that vision that belongs to women. So Rosi, you have the floor. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for being here and being all united towards the goals that we have set. Of course, our company deals with plants and flowers. It was set up in 1820, so many years ago. We have a global production of flowers and plants and garden design. So caring, recycling, including flexible work, for us it's something we have always promoted. This is not lip service, it's actual concrete actions that we are implementing every day. So for us, knowing forecasting the future, knowing the invisible, because we are used at looking at the sky, forecasting thunderstorms, winds, or everything that nature could send, drought, but we never give up. We always restart patiently. We are used at this. Negative experiences are leveraged to become stronger, and we do not ever give up at the first difficulties. We are strong women. We know the waiting time and the time of work, but we also know the time for resting, that it's difficult. Anyway, we are lucky for that in our sector, because right now, to me, the time of work and the time of laziness or rest have been equally pondered in this more than 1 century of our career in our company, we worked all over the world. We always use the same ingredients that we are using right now, and we should always use these materials. Innovation, passion, professionalism, being far-sighted. Today's crisis, the post-COVID, or we are still in the COVID anyway, it's not just a health care crisis or a financial downturn. It's also a crisis of the spirit. And working with the plants in the gardens, with the flowers, helps from this point of view, because it helps psychologically and also physically. The green blindness, as they called it, has mitigated. And we are starting to see what the green can do, what plants can do. We are more aware of plants being generators of oxygen, collecting fine powders. And so working with plants is also therapeutic. So we have to be allied with nature and rediscover the sacred concept of the tree and the land. Now we are finalizing a project that lasted 2 hours on the reclaiming of hydrocarbons polluted soils. So we need to regain all the values that were neglected, like ethics, responsibility for the community, work. I really believe in occupation. Work gives a meaning to existence. And we can also forge better relations to improve partnerships. And then, of course, we care for the school, education, that have to be closer to the young, who are, of course, the pillar of our society. If we invest in culture, if we improve the know-how at work, if we do not cultivate the mind, if we do all that, we can prevent regression. So we have to think ethically for the common good and the good of the environment. Otherwise, we will regress. So education, training, apprenticeship have to be re-included, because these are important not only for training at work, but also to know where we want to go, which road we should take. So training in the companies is fundamental, because this helps men and women to keep the same level of competence and skills, to acquire new capabilities, and to develop everybody's skills. Another important item we're interested in is the fact that to counter black work, we have to improve projects in the cities for the green. We have the so-called bonus verde, green incentives, but this is not enough. It has to be reconsidered, reviewed, to fight against the black market and to raise new job opportunities. This is very important. Women by now are half of the population and operate in all fields, as we've seen, with great satisfaction, with great professionalism. They are capable of reinventing themselves every day, to do always new things and to embrace new journeys. So we ourselves need to be united with all those women. We want to start our work, our job, and let them know the difficulties that they have in our work, because, of course, the corporate risks and the absurd bureaucracy of this country, and I hope it will be mitigated with the reform that has been announced in the recovery plan, so that new women's health companies can be started up, guiding families, creating new nurseries, so that women are free to start the careers they are inspired in and start also in the political career. And so women-based companies cannot but increase. As Lily said, we support also the other women, and we can really guide them into these new journeys. Thank you, Rosa Sgarabatti, for these operational insights from the world of the flowers. We have tackled the issues that are in newspapers every day. So we're getting closer to our conclusion. We have just a few minutes. So let me conclude with a question to the president of AIDA and some exchange of opinions among ourselves. I don't want to talk a lot about social infrastructures, as this was already mentioned more than once, that without social infrastructures, women are not free to enter the job market and to have their way. There is an interesting aspect, we already shared that with the president, that is increasingly proposed. I'm referring to the Family Act and other regional laws to promote women's entrepreneurship. It's a sort of pink quota that is allocated in the Lazio region. There was a recent approval of a law envisaging that companies have to hire women, that there can be fiscal benefits for women and virtuous companies. I don't want to go into the details of the law, but the cultural approach underpinning it. There are those who oppose these provisions and saying that it's not the valorization of the skill but of gender. But it is true that we need to fill a gap. So this kind of approach for you as business women who work on the field and you have experimented firsthand these critical problems. The pink quotas can help us improve the situation. Well, do you think that I can give an answer in just 2 minutes? Well, this is not feasible. Anyway, first of all, we need efficient regulations. I've read many of these laws, but the benefits on the new hirings are just at a very low level. They last for a very short time. It's not absolutely useful. As AIDA, we have a precise position for the financial side. We have taken this position as the pandemic started. And the first thing is to help companies, women's companies. Union Camera study of last year, about October 2020, was issued identifying women's companies were the first to have witnessed a financial crisis, and they were struggling to access credit. The pandemic problem has exacerbated any previous looming crisis. This was for women and men as well. The financing of the liquidity decree were ridiculous. They were financing losses, a financing in a pandemic period that is extraordinary, not due to the crisis of the businessman, but an external cause. This should be very long-term refinancings and should not be short-run. Otherwise, it's financing the loss and do not give the possibility to recover the companies through the investments in R&D. Then the budget law allocated 10 million euros per year for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. We have to see the criteria of these allocations. We talk a lot, but there should be technical experts who know the companies that should be involved in the drafting of these laws. In the recovery plan, there is this reference to women, but I cannot understand the scope. Anyway, the women have less collateral. That's why they have less access. And also in the W20 works, now the problem of the lower collateral for women was tackled because in Italy, but also in other countries, the women have less access to properties, and so of course they are prejudiced, and there are also gender biases. So as an association, we are organizing courses for our members, but also for young women who want to participate, of training and financial education with Unicredit. That's our main sponsor for this year, for the next 2 years. So we will help also this transitioning, this financial and ecological transition, as supported from a financial point of view, because I believe that in the next year or two, there will be a moment of great crisis in adjusting the smallest companies to the changed consumption models and lifestyle. Thank you, President. Given the line, we need provisions, but let's go. But we have to monitor the details of these provisions. Yes, the law for Lazio, I saw that 2 months ago. I don't know if it was amended because it took part of the regional council, and it envisaged benefits, but only for women who had some handicaps. So instead of that to be general, if we keep on restricting the scope, the logic in Italy is that we have just a few money, how can we satisfy everyone? So they limit the categories, that's the truth. If you want to add something, well, for 3 years, Barbara, I was the president of the Women's Entrepreneurship Committee. We developed a project to launch some startups, because the important thing was to help those who wanted to set up a company. So with the Chamber of Commerce, we introduced a program of training, a free course of 1 month and a half for those who wanted to start up an activity with a business plan, followed by a professional, so that it was possible to understand whether at the end of this path, this business plan was feasible, because many times, they want to start a company, but they do not have a precise idea, and budgets do not comply. So there's no point in starting an activity if you do not have a supporting business plan. And at the end of this course, with the help of women, of business women, they have opened activities, I would say 10 persons out of 30 participants started up. So for me, that year was really a success. I was the president, and I know that some of these activities are still going on. That's an important thing. Roberta? Well, I invite you to follow the speech by the president of our committee of business women of the Chamber of Commerce in Rome. She's going to talk about the project that we are putting forward with the Chambers of Commerce of Italy. As the president said, it's necessary that institutions support women's empowerment with financial leverages that are suitable especially for SMEs, because equal opportunities should be regardless of gender, based on intelligence, skills, and capabilities. Yes, I apologize, maybe I couldn't intervene, but out of this panel, we stated why it's necessary to have a greater presence of women. We share the same vision, sustainability, social responsibility, and of course, originating from women. We need it now, especially now. Yes, I wanted to add something. For us, being a man-based company, it was not that easy. I had to fight, like every woman, working, learning, and then, of course, I've been recognized my effort, but it was not that easy. And I was not forced, because you cannot force anyone in a company, because, of course, the whole staff, we are 140 people, anyway, all these persons recognize the capabilities. So I agree that women have to start accessing, but they also have to learn to conquer their positions. They have absolutely to know that everything, also for men, I think, at work, you have to conquer that with your professionalism, knowing what you're going to do, and consequently, I think that we are good at fighting and we are resistant and stronger. And so, anyway, we have to be aware of that and recognize and don't think that everything is dramatic. It's what is done every day. We deliver children, so we know what it means. Yes, we as Arvida Friuli Venezia Giulia, already for 4 or 5 years, we have been paying 15 scholarships to girls, their study courses for 2 years for youngsters who want to go through the national studying programs based on STEM programs, and sometimes young girls do not think they are capable of that. So by paying the annual fee of enrollment allows this young woman to think, well, I can try and maybe I can keep on. So in Friuli Venezia Giulia we have a lot of mechanics, and now it's different compared to the past. We use computers on our machines, so you don't need that much physical strength. It's no longer a physical problem. Women can do that. Very well. Thank you warmly for your participation and sharing your experiences. When I listen to the stories of business women in companies who have a long history, who built a lot despite difficulties we are witnessing, I always have this feeling of great hope and positivity. And so I think that this panel is really conveying this message in all of us. Thank you.
Va bene? Sì.
I fatti grandi della vita, mentre accadono, sono fatti piccoli. Sono Franca Viola, nata nel 1948 ad Alcamo, in Sicilia, da una famiglia di coltivatori. A 17 anni prendo una decisione che cambia la storia. Tutto comincia nel 65, quando rifiuto la corte di Filippo Melodia, nipote di un boss locale. Il nostro casolare viene bruciato, il vigneto distrutto, ma io non cedo. Così, un giorno, Melodia e i suoi complici mi rapiscono. Per 8 infiniti giorni mi vessano, mi costringono alla fame e alla fine mi stuprano. Quando torno in libertà, per il paese sono disonorata e automaticamente la futura sposa di Melodia. A quei tempi, infatti, la legge 544 del Codice Penale prevede il matrimonio riparatore come alternativa alla pena per stupro. Nessuna si è mai ribellata a quella tradizione disumana, per non essere additata come svergognata e anche per la paura di rimanere zitella. Ma io non sono proprietà di nessuno e nessuno può costringermi ad amare una persona che non rispetto. L'onore lo perde chi le fa certe cose, non chi le subisce. Scelgo di essere la prima donna a rifiutare il matrimonio riparatore. La gente ci toglie il saluto, mio padre perde il lavoro e io sono costretta a una sorta di clausura. Ma Melodia e i suoi complici vengono condannati e incarcerati e la mia storia diventa simbolo di speranza, spingendo tante altre, dopo di me, ad emanciparsi dai loro carnefici. Oggi sono felicemente sposata, ho 2 figli e una nipote. A lei ripeto sempre che ciascuno si fa con le sue mani. Bisogna decidere ciò che è giusto, non quello che conviene. Mi chiamo Benedetta Pingue, ho 24 anni e sono io che vi ho appena raccontato la storia di questa prima donna. Lavoro nel sociale e il mio sogno è quello di entrare nel mondo della cooperazione internazionale. Il primo insegnamento che ho ricevuto è quello di essere sempre una donna libera e indipendente. Per questo oggi ho deciso di raccontarvi la storia della prima donna che ha rifiutato il matrimonio riparatore, Franca Viola.
Parliamo di rete con i comitati imprenditoriali femminili della Camera di Commercio italiana. Grazie.
Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Good afternoon. It is an honor to be here. I am president of the Rome Chamber of Commerce Women Entrepreneurship Committee, and it was a great honor to host in this wonderful venue this incredible summit here at the Temple of Hadrian. Today, we're going to talk about the network of the Italian Chambers of Commerce, Women Entrepreneurship Committees. Tiziana Pompei, Deputy Secretary of Union Camere. I am Deputy Secretary General of Union Camere, and for the past few years I've been coordinating the Women Entrepreneurship Committees. First of all, I wish to thank the W20, the Rome Chamber of Commerce, but most especially I wish to thank Valeria Giaccari for giving us the possibility to present our network of committees and also to provide our contribution to the most urgent policies that need to be approved. Since 1999, the Chambers of Commerce are the public institutions that, upon initiative of the Ministry of Economy, have established women entrepreneurship committees. I see the participation of women representatives, representatives of trade unions. Now, we mentioned the civil society, and I really believe that the role of civil society is fundamental. Governments must make decisions, but then it is the civil society that implements change. That is why associations are so important and why our network is so important. Over the past 20 years, we've always focused on this theme, also when it was not on the government's agenda. And we focused on women, especially on women projects for women. And there are many initiatives, have to say, many proposals that our network organizes. Our network is not simply a network because it is present all over the territory, because the chambers of commerce are present everywhere in Italy, but it is a real network that develops initiatives in different regions, in different territories, as we will see in a moment. So it is also a great reservoir of ideas and proposals. So we carry out many concrete proposals, many concrete activities, as we've already heard in our roadmap. For instance, we provide training, digital training programs. We collaborate with schools and with universities. We do mentoring activities, role model activities. We are also concerned with the theme of violence against women, but also we offer our statistics, the statistics of the Chamber of Commerce, of the Chambers of Commerce. We have an observatory of women entrepreneurship that is an important point of reference for all the studies on this phenomenon. This observatory has been also essential when decisions had to be made on the recovery plan. So let me start by sharing some data with you. Unfortunately, women, as it was said, and women-led enterprises were hit hardest by the COVID crisis. And also, women-led enterprises were affected enormously. In 2020, the new women-led enterprises were at minus 4,000, whereas over the past few years, we have seen a constant growth of 3%. So this is really important. There were some sectors that were hit hardest, for instance, made in Italy, fashion, tourism, culture, entertainment, but also the manufacturing sectors. In the first quarter, however, we're seeing a change. Female-led enterprises are starting to grow by 1%, and 8% of this 1% of these new companies, of these new enterprises, are led by women below the age of 30. Let me show you some European data. The situation of European women entrepreneurs, because we are also members of a European network. We are part of an association of European Chambers of Commerce. And we conducted a survey to try and understand what the impact of the crisis really was and what happened a year after the crisis, at the beginning of the crisis. Over 70% of the enterprises were not present online to sell their products and services before the health emergency. 46% started to go digital because of the pandemic. Yesterday, something quite interesting was said on the theme of going back to normality. Well, of course, this is the goal. However, with regards to innovation and the digital world, well, we have to make a huge leap forward. We do not have to go back to normal, but we have to move forward and fast. And female entrepreneurs, both Italian and European, wanted to have four things. First, training and support to succeed in the challenge posed by the digital world, better access to credit, training, and measures that provide a long-lasting business transformation. Because what female entrepreneurs say, is that the business model is changing and they feel not prepared on this. And in the end, internationalization from a digital perspective will also be a tool to spread made in Italy products all over the world. Therefore, we will need to stake everything on young women because they are those who perform better. And also because they are those, as we said this morning, that fully believe in this choice. In female entrepreneurship for them is not a plan B. But digitalization does not simply mean to invest in infrastructures and training. It was said also yesterday. So not only broadband, but nearly we need to provide, to encourage enterprises to better organize themselves. This will be important. And then we have the theme of sustainability, environmental sustainability and the green economy. Again, the theme of investment, the investment that in the green economy by women entrepreneurship. So, and this is done not only for the competitive advantage that this can give, but also because women, today's female entrepreneurs, are more focused on sustainability, environmental sustainability. So they are very aware of this approach, of this problem. This is a value, because if there's a skills gap, a skills mismatch, I mean, women can learn. Today's entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, really care for newer generations, and this is a great value. So I would like to conclude by saying that there is a new generation of female enterprises that we can support, as we must support for a more equitable growth. However, next to funds, besides funds or funding policies, we need policies to support women locally, but also at the central level, at the national level. And so chambers of commerce and women entrepreneurship committees, together with other stakeholders, for instance, professional associations, can be an important stakeholder, not only for monitoring, but also because they can provide education, they can provide training, they can disseminate the entrepreneurial culture. Thank you, Tiziana. It is exactly so. Women entrepreneurship committees are present on the territory, and therefore they can fully understand the peculiarities of the individual territories. If you don't know them, they are actually groups of women representing both professional or entrepreneurs associations, so companies, productive activities, and so on, but also trade unions, because we also have trade union representatives, but also there are consumers associations. So I have to say that committees really have a wealth of skills, because they combine employers, workers, but also consumers. So it is a very diversified team, and this is really a wealth. It is fundamental to have the possibility to dialogue with all those who belong to our society. Now, during the pandemic, as Tiziana said, we clearly said that women were strongly affected. That is why we developed to foster this network. So we started off, collaborating among different provinces, and little by little we established some laboratories of entrepreneurship. All the members of the various committees took part in these laboratories. And also by using modern technologies, we developed a technical working groups, that is, groups that focused on specific themes. Maybe they, for instance, had different skills that different people could have on specific territory. Now, I work in the field of human resources, and I followed most especially two themes. The first is orienteering and is training. As we said, it is fundamental to start from training of young women, to guide them towards the labor market, and most especially I want to highlight that there are no jobs for men or for women, because any job can be done by anyone. And also we believe that training can give more opportunities to women, and also organized initiatives for disadvantaged women. So we started some courses organized by the various committees, and for instance, immigrant women or women victims of violence. So we tried to give them training, and we tried to help them find a job, most especially during a difficult moment like this one. Another theme is the theme of STEM. Tiziana also mentions that innovation is important. We, the Rome Committee, but also other committees, organized some awards for innovation, because women, as we know, are often very creative and they want to invest in creativity. So STEM, we realized, and you know very well, that at times women, young girls, do not feel like getting involved in STEM. At times, even professors, even school teachers, even their families discourage them to study STEM disciplines. But we organize, for instance, an activity called the Scuola di STEM, in which also, thanks to regional schools, regional offices, we had the possibility to organize encounters with female role models, as not simply scientists, but also young women who have achieved success in their lives by studying STEM disciplines. So we organized these meetings, these encounters, starting from the middle school. And we, in fact, believed that it was important to start early during the schooling process. Besides these two projects, well, let me introduce Stefania Brancaccio, who is president of the Naples Committee. And I'm very happy to tell you that she was also awarded Cavaliere del Lavoro. I am very happy to say that, because you received the Order of Merit for Labor. So Stefania will tell us something more about credit. Thank you. Also, thank you for your patience to be here. I'm the president of the Naples Women Entrepreneurship Committee. I am an entrepreneur, I'm an old entrepreneur, and also I have the Order of Merit for Labor. So what I do in my presidency is to support and help women entrepreneurs. What have we seen? Well, the real problem for women entrepreneurs is access to credit. I run a company that does steel work in the south of Italy, and I have not had, and I've always had problems to access credit. My company is, normally was run by men, but when I noticed that the greatest difficulty of small and medium enterprises and also of micro enterprises that belong to the chambers of commerce had this difficulty of access to credit, well, we tried to focus on this problem, and we promoted training courses to access credit, but we also started to lobby on our banks, because we have the Golfo law, which means that in our banks we should have some specific quotas in the board of directors in which there should be women. So I appeal to those women who've entered the boards of directors of banks. So when I asked, how many women do we have in banks, and who, when they receive a request for credit, do these women know that that request come from a woman entrepreneur? Well, banks do not provide this data, because we wanted to analyze whether
e a favore delle donne, è stato importante che noi avessimo avuto la legge Golfo.
The Golfo law was really effective. Because of course the law says that more women should sit on boards of directors, but we wanted to know whether women, when they sit on boards of directors, they simply become a copy of men. You know, they imitate men in their decision making. And we saw that the access to credit of women enterprises suffer from a double discrimination. First of all, because they're very small enterprises, 50% of them are laundry shops, companies that do offer beauty services. So it is as if for banks, this type of enterprises do not actually exist. And then men believe that women-led enterprises are risky. This is incredible, and the cost of the money for women-led enterprises, for instance, startups, is higher. I accompanied many women entrepreneurs as I had the possibility I accompanied many young female startuppers, and I noticed that men believe that they are where men simply told them bluntly that female companies, women-led companies, are risky. But we know that data show exactly the opposite. And this is incredible. Besides the training courses that we organize, because women alone should actually have their rights respected. We know that there are many women that have to endure this type of violence. They are denied credit, and this is absolutely terrible for us women. And then another issue I wanted, and we're working on this theme because we are working on this idea, that is to introduce in companies, the bank should provide a product, and we are preparing this for cooperative banks, a product that, if given to enterprises, shows that those companies that hire more women-led enterprises with a strong feminine presence, by studying this aggregated data, they received some sort of benefits. This is what we wanted to say, because, earlier I spoke to Minister Carfagna, and I have to say that our women in the South, they suffer from three types of gap: gender gap, because they're women; a generational gap, because they're young; and a geographical gap, because they live in the South. So our women, they are discriminated 3 times compared to other women. Thank you, Stefania, for this wonderful presentation. In fact, we have to uproot these differences and also stereotypes. So what we have managed to do as a network of committees is also to show that women can work as a network, can do teamwork, can act as a team among themselves, but also to network with others. In fact, the committee networks also collaborated with universities, international centers. For instance, there is a project called Stimiamoci to support, to help women study STEM themes. And this project was both national and international. In fact, we also involved embassies, consulates, and so on. And so we managed to broaden this network also to the outside world, let's say, not only to Italy. Now, let us hear Cristina Tumiaci. She is president of the Turin Chamber of Commerce Women Entrepreneurship Committee. So there she is. I can see her. I can see she's online. And she will follow us. She's following us from Turin. And I think that she will have her presentation in English. So welcome, Cristina.
If you are Italian, if you are from Turin, but yes, we are here and we would like to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Valeria, and hi to everybody. It's a great honor for me to be here representing the Turin Chamber of. I'm sorry, but I hear the translation on the.
Okay, we hear you anyway. We don't hear the translation, so if you can.
Ok, proviamo a fare così. Facciamo così. Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me well, since I have some problems with my ears. I was saying thank you, Valeria. It's a great pleasure to be here, representing also the network of the committees that joined our projects. For us, we strongly believe on the power of network. As committees, it is clear to us how necessary it is to work and expand networks at both local, regional, national, and international levels. Teams, like you said before, teams like as training, guidance, orientation, credit, as Ms. Brancaccio just said, reskilling, leadership, empowerment, new organizational model of work and business, an issue that finds space in debate not only locally but internationally. So it's very important to have a meeting as important as the one that you are having and hosting in these 3 days of work. Actually, on the last round table, I heard from many friends a lot of very interesting, good stories and initiatives that, from our point of view, have to be spread and disseminated. We need to grow synergies on different projects and find a way to influence and be more effective on the real world and the real economy. And we strongly believe that to make an effective impact, we have to be where policies are decided, to talk with correct policymakers, and we need to demonstrate that we have that we can do the difference. So that's why we really, for us, it's really important to be here today. For example, and I'm sorry, but sometimes I have to be critical. It is a shame that in the New Skill Fund, so il Fondo Nuove Competenze in Italian, there were no bonuses for specific reskilling of women. So we hope it's not a missed opportunity, and we hope that there can be there is still room to act in this sense. As I said before, it is really important to be present on a local, European, and international level. That's why for us it's very important to participate both as committees and in particular as the Committee of Torino to the works of Eurochambre Women Network, and to see and to work with WeGate, that is the European portal to share initiative and projects. On the other side, we also joined the project Women 2027, that is started by an initiative that is called Donne si fa storia, with Union Camere Lombardia, Union Camere Veneto, Piemonte, and now is joined also by Union Camere, National Union Camere, that aims to bring women entrepreneurs closer to European programs in order to make more use of relative funds. Because as we just said a small time before, we have some problems with finance. So very good to be part of projects that can enforce us in this way. And finally, as Torino, we also are planning to host the initiative called IWEC Foundation in 2022, and we hope that you can all join us in case it will be hosted by Torino. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cristina. Now I leave the floor to Marza Majorano, He's president of the Committee for Women in Entrepreneurship in Milan and in the Lombardy network of
Hi,
committee.
good afternoon to all participants. For inviting me, I represent Milan and Lombard Committee. My job is to explain our vision. Our vision is clear and shared. The main focus is building the woman's economic identity. The economic identity means empower female leadership and support the development of new strategies to have a good impact on our economy. We aspire to a new role in innovative and sustainable global market. We all know women have been at first to balance work and life, the first to collide with the weakening of their abilities. Today again, women are paid less than men. Despite these unfavorable conditions, women represent the safe asset for our communities and our economy, the most relevant resilience center to face ordinary and extraordinary difficulties. For years, women have built an ecosystem of trust to support the evolution of society. In the meantime, our committees have created a real and concrete visible network, a wealth of experiences and sensitivity with a common goal, the promotion of female entrepreneurship for over 20 years. Consequently, the number of women's companies is growing, contributing to economic development with jobs and new businesses. For these reasons, it's necessary to include their participation with all the required policies to legitimize their talent and ambition, considering the positive impact of their presence in the economy. They have always contributed positively to the development. Think about it. Where there was no vision, they have built a road and shared values. Where there was misalignment, they have clarified the objectives, structures, implemented new processes to foster a culture of development. Where there was delegitimation, they are focused on the legitimacy of individuals, groups, and weaker categories. Support the development of entrepreneurship feminine is a clear message that inclusion is an ethical and economic value. For all of these, the committees have a common strategy to be ready to play their part in economic complex scenario, but not impossible to evolve towards a better future. The universe of skills and talents female is helpful for the innovative development and the relaunch of our countries. The numbers show us companies led by women who prove to be more socially responsible, more attentive to environmental sustainability, and therefore have great potential in terms of impact on our society. Also, facilitates access to STEM disciplines for women is another fundamental point. The period we are experiencing requires that all the best intelligence contributes to the world view, women included. We cannot allow such a significant and qualifying part of energies to continue to remain unspoken. Instead, we must work to ensure that women will be a part of the restart, from a center of resilience to a center of disruptive leadership, capable of building and evolving business models and more. Therefore, women can no longer postpone recognizing their own economic identity. It's not just an ethical question, but the tangible impact that this could have on the relaunch of countries. Our committees work jointly on two fundamental paths. The first, gender equality, is an inclusive and transversal mission. The second, the same importance about the first, the economic identity of women is a mission for the competitiveness of our countries and the building a new future we deserve. Thank you so much.
Grazie Marzia.
Thank you, Marta. Now, I would say that to have the possibility to get to know better the committees, we would have liked to have them all here represented today. We are all in Italian provinces. We are many with their affection. It would be so pleasant to us to have them here personally. It was not possible. We hope we represented them. And working jointly, we can have a tomorrow where we will no longer talk about gender competences, but real competences. Thank you to everyone.
Visto? Parliamo di resilienza.
We talk about the resilience. This is a cool term now. Resilience of women in times of financial downturn. Thank you.
Yes, hi. Hi, welcome to this session of the Women G20. I'm Tonia Mastrobuoni. I work for Repubblica. I'm correspondent from Berlin, and I'm ECB watcher. I've been for many years. I'm very pleased to introduce the session. I will moderate this session about women's resilience in times of economic crisis. But of course, it will be more. It will be also about the pandemic and the challenges that women have had to suffer in this very long corona crisis, which is still not over. So as we're late, I would like to introduce immediately our panelists, because I know that someone has to leave us earlier than the end of the panel. So as we know, women have lost their jobs more often than men during the pandemic, and women have had the burden of the closed schools, of course. So they have been double challenged by this crisis, and so I would enlarge our discussion to what is happening now, what would happen in the future, and as I said. Mara Panagia, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, will have to leave us soon. So I would introduce her first. She's general manager at laundry and home care at Henkel Italia. And I would like to ask her, I would go immediately in medias res, and what I would like to ask her, we know that the recovery fund, which has, of course, been absorbed by the Next Generation EU, will ensure us a great recovery in occupation and growth. But we know also that there are hidden risks which are linked to this Next Generation EU and to these opportunities. I'm referring to the fact that 57% of the money that will be spent on the Next Generation EU will be dedicated to digital and green. And digital and green are sectors which are mainly occupied by men. So we have had a lot of job losses among women during the pandemic. And so we will have to be very careful that the recovery takes account of these job losses and takes account also of the caveats of this Next Generation EU. So Mara Panagia, I don't know if you are connected, if you can hear us, and I would like to ask you how would you suggest that we of course that we face the next generation EU and all the challenges of the recovery, including women?
Tanya, so my name is Mara Panaya. Good afternoon to everybody. Happy to be here with you. So I believe that, first of all, is a very good opportunity that the mission number 5 of Next Generation is including gender equality, but also talking about young generation and geographic areas. I believe that when it comes to women, we need really to take care of 2 different aspects, because there is one part that I consider a little bit more hardware, in the sense that we need really to spend some resources in order to favor the women occupation. I'm referring especially to women that are mothers and really need to be supported in their daily job. So I think that one important part needs to be allocated to whatever regards family allowances or child benefit, but also to encourage kindergarten and whatever is possible when it comes to paternity leave. Because we know that in Italy, paternity leave is not something that is largely used. We know that this has been introduced in 2013 with the Fornero law and has been incremented in 2021 with the balance law up to 10 days. But this is not still enough, and we need really to increase this part and have the possibility that men can work more and more together with women to create this passage. I also believe, and I've listened to this in the previous speeches, that what is important also is to work in this gender pay gap, because we also need to have women that can be paid the same way of women. But Tonya, to me, what is also important is that besides this hardware part, there is also kind of the software part, because what is also important in women that really work or like me try to do career in their life is also the importance of judgment and the trust towards these women. You might know that I've worked 5 years in Germany, commuting every week and leaving my husband and 2 children here in Italy. And of course, I was from one side really hit by kind of guiltiness, and at the same time I was also quite judged. So I believe that we need also a transformation in the mindset and in a way in which we consider women that work. Lastly, if you allow me, I would also like to add a point, because we also now assist to women that try to behave a little bit like men, while I believe that the real richness, the real added value of women working is really the fact that they can act as a woman and that they can bring their women experience in the daily life. Because I believe that there are some characteristics that are peculiar of women and that can really enrich a company, like the listening, the inclusion, the passions, lots of characteristics that companies need in order to progress.
Thank you very much, Mara. I think that maybe we have a little more time to ask you a second question, because I hope my other panelists will forgive me, but Mara has to leave us soon. You mentioned that in Germany, there is a mixed culture of prejudice, and I remember when Ursula von der Leyen became family minister in 2005, she had to face these big prejudices also in her part, because her attempt to build a lot of kindergarten was very opposed by her own party. So this is a cultural battle that we have to do also in Italy, because I want to remind you that in the PNRR that was presented by the Draghi government in Brussels, I think the targets are very low, because I think a participation of children to kindergarten of 33%, which are
Correct.
the goals of Lisbon of 15 years ago, is a bit, is not very brave, is it, Mara?
Correct, correct, Tonia. This 33% is very low, and if I compare what is happening in other countries, like in France, I have the chance of being quite multicultural because my husband is French, so I'm confronted with the French reality. I realize that Italy stands quite behind compared to other countries. Also in France, there are very some help, some support when it comes to fiscality, because when you have more children, you can split your income according to the children. So this is one point. But you're right, unfortunately in Italy we stand quite behind, not only when it comes to kindergarten, but also when it comes to the percentage of female occupancy, because you might know that in Italy less than one woman out of two is working compared to 67% in Germany and up to 70% in France. So of course we need to speed up in this. I see that the government Draghi is doing quite a lot. They are thinking about a new kind of family check, universal, and also kind of bonus of babysitting that can, of course, favor the female employment. But as we said, I believe that there is also a change in the mindset that is needed. And you're right, Germany stands quite behind, but I can tell you that also Italy stands, unfortunately, quite behind. So a woman with a profile like mine, who left into bracket, left the husband, had the children to go abroad to work, was not really seen as a positive model, at least not 6-7 years ago. Now maybe time has changed, so now there is this tendency to look this experience with a more positive eye.
I thank you very much, Mara. This was a very, very interesting answer. And I would switch to finance, which is also a very interesting sector, because in the finance sector, we know that women have been very rare until a few years ago. I remember when in 2008, the great financial crisis started, there was a joke going around in those financial circles that was, what would have happened if it weren't Lehman Brothers but Lehman Sisters? Maybe we wouldn't have had the crisis. And at that time, I remember that there was no CEO of a big bank who was a woman. There was no central banker who was a woman. And now we have, of course, Christine Lagarde at the ECB. At that time, 2008, there was no man even in the board of the ECB. Now there is one. She's German. She's very good. And so my first question to Lily Hudson, who is CEO of Sustainability Research and Investment Solution at Credit Suisse Group, is a very simple question. How has the banking sector changed in this sense? How have women been included? And then I would like also to know from you the same question that I posed to Mara. I mean, we have the great challenge of a recovery who will be a lot helped by this Next Generation EU, but we will have to be very careful how we invest this money, because digital and green, as you know very well, are sectors where men are overwhelmingly more occupied than women.
Thank you for the great questions, and it's wonderful to be here with all of you. I'll start by echoing Mara's comments, which is to say that finance is very similar in that the first step is to create the kind of policies and procedures that are assistive in having a more diverse workforce. And so what does that mean for women? That means good maternity leave policies, that means good healthcare policies, good paternity leave policies, and indeed also the opportunity for women to care, to perform elderly care. So it really does start with having good procedures and policies in place that, of course, government or regulators can also insist upon. But I think the big change you've seen, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, is really the advancement of more agile environments professionally. Now, that's probably what led to a generation of women, really sticking through in greater numbers in the workforce, although we would obviously argue that we're not at parity and that the finance industry indeed has much further to go. Though I will also just say that in addition to having Christine Lagarde, of course, we now have a couple of female CEOs, including of Citibank, Jane Fraser. So we are making visible progress. And through the ranks, of course, the policies and procedures that I just mentioned are enabling a generation of women to move through the various life stages and being supported through the companies in which they work for. And then coming to the second question that you posed, our research shows that women, in fact, did lose out in the COVID environment in greater numbers. There are probably 2 to 3 reasons for that. One being that women did shoulder the majority of the burden of childcare, and so stepping away to take care of children whose calendars changed because of school at home or health reasons. But also, and importantly, women tend to have higher representation in businesses and industries that suffered more in COVID and continue to suffer more in COVID, like restaurants, hotels, retail, and personal services. So it's that double whammy of women shouldering the burden at home, plus the industries that were most affected by COVID, really meant that women's participation in the workforce really declined substantially over the course of 2020, and that continues in part in 2021. So to be optimistic, how do we ensure that we have women participate in the future? And there was a bit of a question embedded in your overall question about the future of green economy, the future of sustainability as a topic. And of course, this is a place where I spend a lot of my time. And I would argue that, COVID really reinforced investor appetite for sustainability to be at the forefront of corporate agendas. And in general, I will correlate that to a future where diversity and inclusion must be at the cornerstone of corporate strategy. And therefore, I'm quite optimistic that we're going to make greater strides in having a more inclusive economic fabric going forward, because the data supports that more diverse and particularly gender diverse organizations have better returns, have higher returns on sales, have higher return on equity. And therefore, coupled with what we're going to do, which is build back better, and the investor appetite for seeing diversity and inclusion at the center of strategy, I'm quite optimistic in this regard.
But do you think there could be a way to ensure that women are, that there is equality in also when investors invest in companies, to look at them, to look at their composition, and maybe to choose the companies where there are more women? This is something that have been discussing for years here in Italy, but there are not big results, as you see.
Yeah, well, the topic of, and there are different words depending on which geography you're residing in. Quotas were the term of art perhaps for most of the 90s, but the word that's most used now are targets. And in fact, investors are, at least in my experience, quite focused on diversity and inclusion targets and metrics. Now, that's not necessarily consistent for all investors, but it is increasingly important. And what you're seeing is that investors who prioritize ESG or sustainability have a series of questions that they ask about environmental impact, social impact, which is where you see topics of diversity and inclusion, and also governance topics. And so these are increasingly on the tip of the tongue of investors, and the asset management industry has moved very fast in this regard, faster than regulators or governments. And in fact, I work for a bank, and so I tend to believe quite strongly in market forces and in the market sorting this out. I do think the investor community and the asset management industry in particular has done a great deal to make sure that to engage with corporations to really implement these changes and to make this a focus, because it's considered good governance and it's considered good social strategy. So I think that that might be happening in the background in kind of the works of how corporations are actually engaging with the investor community who own their shares. But I think that's also quite beneficial to the overall objective. And in some cases, I think that may be a quite efficient way of ensuring better diversity and inclusion.
Thank you so much, Lily. I would like to involve now our next panelist, who is Lux Cecilia Palazuelos Garcia Bringas. I hope I'm spelling it right. She's president of Fundación de Agentes Aduanales para la Asistencia Infantil. And we have already talked about the burden that, of course, the women have shouldered during this crisis, but also children. I mean, schools have been closed in the whole world. This has been such a burden for children. Now we have the first studies about the devastating consequences on their psychology and so on. But there's also, of course, I mean, Lily said it, there's also an economic side of this, because women have more often are obliged to leave their jobs to care for the family. Lux Cecilia.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the invitation. For us at Fundación, it's very important to help all the necessary social organizations that are targeting education and health. Resilience for us is not just riding the wave, it's making a change. And worldwide, all the funds stop coming into the organizations. And we had to get creative, and we had to do things to start this role and getting all the things we needed. So from Fundación, that is based on the customs program,